SEO, okay, so the technical term is it stands for search engine optimization. The way I describe that as is getting your shit seen on Google. So when someone types in something into Google search, you want your business to be the one that pops up at the top.
Imagine waking up to a flood of new clients who found your business simply by searching on Google. It sounds a little bit like a dream, right? But actually, what if I told you it's entirely possible and all you need is the right strategy? Today, we're joined by my expert guest who's talking all about the art and science of getting your business found on Google without spending a single cent on ads. So, if you've ever wondered how some brands just seem to appear at the top of a Google page or a Google search when you run it, stick around because Sally is about to reveal all their secrets. And yes, today we're joined by a true marketing powerhouse, Sally Howard. She's the founder and chief marketing maverick at 49 North Digital. And Sally's journey from travel blogging to becoming an SEO queen is nothing short of inspiring. And she's here to share her insights on how you can master SEO to make sure your business gets found on Google. So, in this episode, Sally shares how you can master the fundamentals of SEO, how you can avoid the common pitfalls that could be holding your site back, and she generously shares her 6-step framework that will skyrocket your online visibility. If you're ready to elevate your business and get noticed on Google, you are in the right place, my friend. Keep listening. And before we dive in, let me ask you, please remember to review and follow or rate the show wherever you're listening today. Your support keeps the knowledge flowing. Okay, Sally. Oh, I'm so excited to have you on the Master Your Business podcast.
Hello!
Welcome.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me it's a gorgeous day today. So living the
Yeah,
dream.
yeah. And Sally, you and I met on a retreat in Lanzarote, and it was a gorgeous
Oh,
day there too.
it was a gorgeous retreat.
Yeah. So, folks, I've brought Sally in to talk to us today about SEO because she is freaking expert at this stuff. And for those of you who don't know what SEO is, Sally, straight away, dive in. What is SEO?
SEO, okay, so the technical term is it stands for search engine optimization. And loosely translated, the way I describe that as is getting your shit seen on Google. So when someone types in something into Google search, you want your business to be the one that pops up at the top. So people could be like, oh, great. Yeah, people trust what's at the top of Google, basically. So search engine optimization, SEO, is all about the things that you can do on your website and sometimes off your website too, to give you the best likelihood of being in that top position.
Okay, that makes so much sense because it's
Mhm.
like you type whatever you're looking for into Google and then certain things crop up. So, a lot of the stuff that I see, if I type anything into Google that comes up, it all says sponsored.
Yes. And
What's that?
that's a big thing. So they are actually ads served up by Google. And
Mm.
this is like, I'd say, an increasing challenge for SEO peeps, because back in the day you'd get maybe like two sponsored ads and you could still see the organic first result. Now it's like four, five, maybe even more before you get to organic. Now the good thing is because it has that sponsored tab, I think if you're anything like me, I always skip the sponsored ones. I never click the ads. I want to see what's really ranking because anyone can pay to be on the top of Google. Like
Ah.
that's not what we want. Like I want to know that they've earned that top spot. And then there's this other thing, and I'm already getting a bit more complicated. But there's something what I guess SEOs like to call as getting on page zero, you might want to call it. And that is, so say, for example, someone searches business coach near me, and you'll sometimes find that you get like richer results. So you might get results in maps, for example. If you can get on those maps, then you're sometimes ahead or of the sponsored results or a little bit higher. You know, there might be two sponsored results, then a map. There may even be someone asking questions. So, have you ever seen where it says people ask or people also ask?
Mm.
If you can get your like a snippet of your website in there, that's kind of classed as, I guess, a page zero result because it's even higher than page one. And you do that through something called structured data or schema markup. Now, that is more advanced. You can rank on Google without that. But when we're talking about kind of the ever shrinking organic results page and we're getting flooded by ads, having those little things on your websites and making sure that you do show up on Google Business, that you've got your little pointer on the map, that you're answering questions that your audience are asking on your blog. You've even got like reviews on your website. Those little things can actually push you up higher, so you're shown in like those featured results.
That's interesting. And I've got so many questions off the back
Mhm.
of everything you've already said, right? And not to get too complicated, but here's a thing that I have about my Google My Business. And I know a lot of listeners, they work from home, they work for themselves,
Mhm.
and I don't want to have my pointer on my map near my home. What do you
Yes.
recommend people do in that instance?
Yeah, and this is where it gets a little bit difficult because Google likes Google business pages to be specifically for bricks and mortar businesses, but then they have options to list service businesses on there. So it's kind of like a bit of a gray area, so to speak. Now, what I've recently done is I've changed it to my accountant's address because my registered office address is my accountant's address.
Smart.
Sometimes they're like, yeah, great. Sometimes they review it online and they're like, you're good to go. Sometimes they'll email you a code and that will be your verification. Other times you get caught and they say, we want a video of this property with evidence that you are actually working here. And then you're like,
Oh my
for
God, Google
fuck's
do
sake.
that?
Yeah, I've had it happen twice.
Wow.
And I've had it happen with a client in Ireland actually,
Mm,
and we were like, "Oh, for fuck's sake." Like, because it's like a remote office, you know what I mean?
yeah.
And I actually had it happen with myself. I once made the mistake of having my home address on there, which I didn't realize at the time. We all make mistakes in business. And then when I changed it to my accountant's address, it was like, "We want video footage." And I think it's maybe because there's a lot of business owners with that address because
Mm,
obviously all their clients have it. But you can also have like other virtual office addresses. So sometimes physical co working spaces offer a virtual office service. And then
mhm,
there are also other online ones as well that can be like, okay, we can have your mail directed to this building here and we forward it on to you. And then that way you're kind of covering up your personal address, but you can
mm.
still have a physical registered business address.
Oh, that
And
makes
then
sense. There's like the WeWork type spaces
yeah, basically.
and like a PO box sort of thing that you could
Yeah, so
use
I
as well.
don't believe you can do a PO box
Okay.
specifically. I think it has to be an actual physical address.
Mm,
But another thing that you can do as well on Google My Business is you can just have sometimes you have to have an address like for verification, but you don't have to have that live. You can just have service areas. So like say
mm,
for example you're an in-person coach in Dublin and you just want to serve like local business owners in Dublin, you could just set your service area to the Dublin area, for
mhm,
example.
mm. Fabulous. Okay, I
But
love
yeah, it's
that.
it's a bit tedious and I don't want to give like naughty advice. But
Oh,
yeah, they're a bit
Sally.
like the rule is that it should be for bricks and mortar businesses, but I see a lot
Okay.
of service-based businesses do it and I have done it myself. The only caveat is that if they ask you for a video, you're a little bit fucked.
Okay, fair enough. But that's still really good to know because, as I said, the pointer on the map, I'm like, I don't want to point to my home. And, when people subscribe to my email or people get invoices from me, my full address is on there and I'm okay with that because these are people who are in my world. But I don't want to give it to random people on Google because everybody can see that and I don't want that. So that's really
Yeah.
good advice. And Sally, one of the other things you mentioned, just to go back a step, was SEO framework on website and or sorry, SEO on website and off website. So talk because
Yes.
SEO, most people know about SEO for their website. So just touch a
Yes.
little bit on off website, please.
Okay. Yes, yeah, definitely. So I'll just introduce it a little bit. So you've kind of got like, I guess, two main types of SEO. Something that you call on-page SEO, which is everything you do on your own web pages, makes sense. And then you've got off-page SEO, which is everything that you actually do. Everyone thinks it's backlinks and that's it, like getting links like from the press, for example, or even on this podcast, you're going to link back to my site. But it's deeper than that. It really is your brand, and I feel like you'll like this. It's like every bit of diversification of your brand because when Google's looking to rank you, it's no longer good enough to just have banging on page SEO. Like they want to know that you're actually a credible source, especially at a time where anyone can just churn out like reams and reams of content using AI. Like they want to rank really credible resources. So off page SEO is everything that you do off of your website to kind of promote your business. It's like these little touch points. So yes, it's getting backlinks to your site because Google sees that as, oh wow, like if the BBC are linking to her, then she must be a cracking business owner. But it's also even things like your social media could be classed as off-page SEO because it's those brand like touch points. And if you like Google your business name or your personal name, if you're a personal brand, you'll often see sometimes, your social media profiles will come up in that. So it's like it's about having that diversified social media presence. It's getting featured in the press. It's being on podcasts. It's like your digital footprint as a whole basically is all the off-page SEO. And even so we've just mentioned Google Business. That's actually classed as off-page SEO because it's not on your website. You're just tapping into one of Google's features there. So like when you're in directories or on Google Maps, or if you're a wild one that uses Bing and you're on their maps, like it's actually classed as off page because it's not on your website. So in short, any kind of marketing, anything that you do that's not to do with your website could technically be classed as off page SEO.
That's really interesting because, LinkedIn, where most of my clients hang out on LinkedIn, and
Mhm.
most of the people most of the clients that I get who don't come through referrals typically tend to come through LinkedIn. And what's interesting is recently somebody booked a call with me and they wanted some help with their LinkedIn. And so, a lot of the work that I do with people is through LinkedIn. And I'm talking about that more because more and more and more of the people are LinkedIn. So I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, let's just make this LinkedIn thing.
Yeah.
Like, let me talk about how I help people with LinkedIn, right?
Yeah.
And so what was interesting was when these people booked a call with me, I'm like, so how did you find me? Because we weren't connected on LinkedIn. I'm like, how did they find me? Did somebody refer them? I was trying to find out. And they're like, no, we Googled LinkedIn trainers, consultants, strategists, whatever, and you came up. And I'm like, what? Did I?
Yes.
I was like blown away by that because I hadn't expected it at all. So I'm like, yay. But subconsciously, maybe, no, let me be real about this. Totally unconsciously, I was ranking for SEO for LinkedIn.
I
And
love that.
yeah, so it's working. I don't know how, but it's working. But like, well, now I know how because you've just explained it to me. So thank you, Sally.
Yeah. And I've got a little, like, I guess, SEO hack, life hack to share with you on that because it's something I recommend if you've like got a brand new site with no authority. And say if you want to start building like a blog to, to try and target people who are searching, for problems related to like, you solve problems as a business owner. So if they're Googling the problems you solve, they're going to find you, like, for example, LinkedIn trainer. You will find that it might have happened. They might have found your actual website. It might have actually just been your LinkedIn profile that
Mm,
came up and not just your website. And something you can do with this is if you're doing blogs, I've recommended this to a few clients. Let's say you're doing a blog a week. Do 3 of them on your blog, then go write an article on LinkedIn. Because I've seen it, and especially for coaches, I've seen this when I've been doing like competitor analysis and keyword research before. I've found people's LinkedIn blog articles ranking on page 1 of Google, and I'm like, that is really clever because it's a way of getting on page 1. LinkedIn's got all this website authority, they're like big news. They've got like something, we have something called domain authority, and that's like way in the high 90s, but like 99 or 100 or something. And if you're new, you're not going to outrank LinkedIn. So put one of your blog posts on LinkedIn and then you can tap into their SEO and still get visible until your website kind of picks up a little bit.
Okay, I love that. I'm definitely going to try that. That's a
Yeah.
hack, folks. So that's one of the things that I tried to do in the podcast, Sally, is to give people an action step. So watch out at the end. I always call out the action step. You can take a note now. If you're a blog writer, that's going to be one of the things that you're prompted to do. Okay.
Yeah.
So Sally, come back to SEO stuff then in terms of websites, because
Mhm.
I think that's really interesting. And a lot of people listening may have created their own website, or maybe they went to a web designer to get a
Mhm.
website done. And I feel like one of the things that I've noticed from clients who've come to me is they come to me and they're like, Deirdre, I had my website done. It was a waste of fucking money. I
Oh.
never get any referrals from it. It looks good, but it doesn't convert, or I built it myself and nothing's happening there. And they just don't know why. And I'm like, okay, here's the list of why: copywriting, graphics, accessibility, SEO. You need to have your SSL certificate, which is your security padlock thingy,
Yeah.
and all of those other things. So I literally list all of the things. And they're like, okay, I hadn't a clue about any of that stuff. But SEO is a huge reason why. So, what is your advice or suggestions if somebody comes to you and they're like, Google, Sally, I want to get my shit found on Google? What do you tell them
Amazing.
to do step by step?
Okay, step by step. I have like a 6-step process, but the first three are like super duper important. So the first step is I've got a framework and it's called Ascend. I love like having a mountain motif in everything I do. But the first step is, and it's going to scare you a little bit, it's the analytics side of it. But in order to rank on Google, you need to know where you are now so you can build a path to where you want to be. So the first step is to make sure that you are set up with Google Search Console and Google Analytics. And what I can do is if your audience don't even have that step yet, I can send you like a free training it's from my course, and it's literally a record thing. It's nothing pretty, but you can follow along with me to get that set up because you want these things set up so you can actually see where you are. That is step 1 for
Mhm.
anything. And I'll just tell you the difference between the two as well, because I think this is important.
Yeah.
Google Search Console tells you quite a lot of detail about how people are finding you through organic search specifically.
Mhm.
So when you go into there, it will tell you what keywords people have typed into Google to find you. It'll tell you how many impressions you got from that. So that's how many times people have seen your business pop up when they search that keyword, how many people clicked through to your website from that. And it also gives you a number that is your average position for that keyword. And it can be anything from 1 to, I think I've seen it go as high as like 200. Every sort of 10 results is usually a page on Google. So anything 1 to 10, you will be on page 1 of Google.
Mm.
Now, sometimes you got to be a little bit careful with this because sometimes you might see, oh, I'm on page 1, I'm in position 1, but you won't see like a line when you click on it. You'll see a dot. And that usually means you're bouncing in and out and it's not actually found a proper spot for you yet. But Google Search Console tells you kind of all about that. And then Google Analytics, it shows you at I guess, a more macro level how people find you. So did they find you through organic search? Did they find you through paid search? Did they find you through paid social, through organic social? And then it can actually map out the customer journey for you. And it gets a bit technical and a bit overwhelming for some people. But if you want to really get nerdy and get stuck in there, you can literally follow paths that your audience take on there. So what I like to say is analytics is how people behave once they're on your site and roughly how they find you. And Google Search Console, which is like, not a lot of people know about this. That's how people have found you by search. And it's such powerful data because if you find that you don't know anything about SEO and then you install Search Console and you see that you're on page 2 without actively even doing anything to rank on Google, that's what I'd call a low hanging fruit. And I would go in and optimize that because you will likely increase your search ranking pretty quickly if you've managed to get to that position doing Sweet FA.
Oh my God. Like that is, it sounds techy, but it also sounds like this is basic shit that we need to know how to
It
do,
is.
right? And I'm kind of a little bit fascinated by the customer journey piece because I love
Mm,
the whole customer experience stuff, Sally, and we talked about this before. But talk to me about what like, for example, for maybe somebody who is, I don't know, let's say I'm just thinking of somebody who I know is listening to the show episodes recently, who I've met, and she is a coach who works with women in midlife. So, talk to me
okay.
about what a journey might look like through Google Analytics on her site, if you can.
Okay, so specifically on Google Analytics,
Mm.
it might look like, okay, you got 200 clicks from organic search. And then what you can do is there's a button on the left-hand side of the menu, and you can do something called path exploration, and
Mm-hmm.
it'll show you the first page that they landed on, these
Mm.
200 people, and it'll split it all up. And then you'll see a little, like these little kind of like funnels that are coming off, and it'll tell you if they went to another page and another page and another page. And you can go down a rabbit hole. You can literally see if someone scrolled, if they stayed on your page for longer than 10 seconds, because that's like a metric that Google sees as, okay, this is an engaged user because they've been on here for more than 10 seconds or they've taken an action, like they've scrolled down the page. Now, unless you then connect Search Console to analytics or you just use Search Console separately, you won't know exactly how they found you through organic search, which is why you need that Search Console piece. So they might have been searching something really specific, like coach for women in midlife,
Mhm.
or this client of yours might have written a blog and they might have been Googling their symptoms, like, I don't know, give me a symptom of women in midlife.
I don't know. Let's say insomnia.
Yeah, okay, so like, why do I have trouble sleeping? They might be
Mm-hmm.
searching something like that. And then your client might have a blog that's like around, maybe she's summarizing some stuff she's learned about where women over 40 actually on average sleep for X amount of hours. They have difficulty sleeping because of X, Y, and Z. She's like diagnosing it in the blog, doing her thing, and so forth. So then you can like actually see, okay, were they searching for specifically what I do? Which,
Mm-hmm.
if we think about the customer awareness journey, they would be quite solution aware people and they know what they want and they're searching for you. So those searches are actually really powerful because they have a lot of commercial intent. Like there's opportunity to make money there. Like they're very aware and they're ready to solve their problem. Like they want to work with you. Or were they at that stage where they're more like in discovery and they're a bit problem unaware and they're like, why is this happening to me? And they find your client's blog, which is why I always recommend if you've got like a blog or anything like that, don't leave them on a bit of a cul-de-sac at the end. Send them somewhere. Like, do you have a free resource on what that blog's about where
Mm-hmm.
you go deeper so you can get them in your email list? Do you have another related blog? Like, don't make the journey end there for them because you can actually then capture them and take them through the buyer journey and eventually get them to work with you.
I love that. And Sally, something that I'm curious about as well is, is there a way to gauge what the right number or an average number of views and users or clicks are on a website? Like, how do you know what good is?
I think good is very subjective
Mm,
depending on your goals. So obviously we had that stage 1, which is, we're assessing, we're analyzing the data. Step 2 of my framework is doing strategic keyword research. And I'm talking about that because if only 100 people a month search for a specific keyword that you're targeting, then you might have less traffic than someone who's targeting a keyword that gets 1,000 searches per month. But
mhm,
it doesn't make anyone else's results any good or any worse than others. I like to determine a factor of success is, are you getting plenty of traffic? Is that traffic converting into buyers? Like, are they, I think if you can get a web page that converts between like 2 and 5%, that's
mhm,
pretty good. Then, you're doing a good job. But it really does depend on those keywords that you're targeting. So I can't just say, oh, if you get 1,000 clicks a month, you're smashing it.
Hmm.
because there are people out there that might just get a couple of hundred clicks a month, but they might be people who are absolutely obsessed with what they do. Likewise, you might get a website where you're getting 20, 30, 40,000 clicks a month,
Mm.
and it's a bit broader. And I actually
Yeah.
had this discussion in my membership recently, and one of the ladies was asking about her blog, and she was like, "Oh, I heard that you should just go as broad as possible to get as many people on your site as possible." But I actually think we need to be really intentional, because what's the point in casting a super broad, wide net? Because people are going to be like, "Oh, well, it's not really helped me. It's not really what I'm looking for. I'm going to leave." So it's not very high quality traffic.
I
So,
agree with that, Sally. I think you've got to go an inch wide and a mile deep. You've got to find
yes.
your area, and people call them verticals or whatever, but
Hmm.
it is about niching, and it is about, talking specifically to your ideal client, isn't it? Very much. And
Definitely.
what's interesting is with one of my clients who I've been working with for a while now, they have paid, like, I'm talking 15 grand, 16 grand for a website to be custom coded and designed for them. But there was a major fuck up that we didn't figure out until we went to renew the, I don't know who the designers were, the web developers, I don't know who they were. What the client came to me for was that they wanted to be able to make changes and they couldn't, and that business was no longer there, right? No
Yeah.
surprises, because wait till you hear why. They hadn't actually hit publish officially.
Oh my God.
So basically the client had had this website for 2 years, and there's a thing in the back end which might be like schemas you were talking about, like a sitemap. Is that the
I
same
think I
thing?
think I know what's happened here,
They
because I've
hadn't
experienced it
basically
with a client.
turned it on. So the stuff wasn't getting found on Google at all. And it was like, what the hell? And after
Wow.
paying that much money, and they hadn't sorted it out. So I'm working with
Wow.
a client on their website right now, and it's going to be very different. Yeah. So
Yeah.
but that stuff happens, and we're doing the keyword research and we're doing all that sort of stuff for this site. And what is your process for doing keyword research, Sally? Because no, there's all these things behind the scenes that people don't know about websites, and
Mhm.
I always say to people, sorry now, and for websites, this pisses me off because I've learned this with this client a few years ago. Custom coded websites are where you pay a web developer and they go and they write
Oh,
HTML or
it's
Java
fucking
code,
awful.
and you can get the sites to do nice things with that. But there's another option that you can use, and a lot of people starting out, especially coaches, they might use Squarespace or Wix or one of those
Mm.
platforms to design their website. I always say to people, try use WordPress if you can, because
Yeah.
WordPress is the best one, and you can add in blocks and things that you can
Yeah.
figure out how to use, and you can make changes, and you can get people to add a little bit of code, and you can even ask ChatGPT for code if you're stuck.
We
We were talking
literally
about this before we started recording. So I want
literally.
people to know that difference, because you could pay 15 grand or more for a custom coded website, but you could probably pay a third of that to a developer who'll block build it for you, and you've more
Yeah.
control and functionality. So sorry,
No,
slight
no, that's fine.
rant there.
I'd love to add on that before I go into the keyword
Go on,
research,
yeah.
because this actually, like, really fucking boils my piss when I see this.
Yeah.
I think if you're a web developer, I think you should leave your website in a way that the person can take it and carry on with it. So I love using Block. I use WordPress as well. I use Elementor as my page builder. And if I ever want to do something, if I want a dancing unicorn on my website, I could code it and I would ask ChatGPT. I actually asked it to do it one time and I sent it to my web dev friend and I'm like, this looks right. And she was like, yeah, it's not far off. But what happened with your client there, what they didn't do, they didn't index the
That's it.
site.
Yeah.
And one way to check this as well, if you guys want to check if your site is actually indexed by Google, you can literally type into Google site and then quotation marks and your website. If nothing comes up, your website isn't indexed. Now, if you use a website like Wix, like Squarespace, like WordPress, it's a click of a button thing. Really easy to do. And I actually had something similar with a client I ended up working with. She She didn't pay thousands. She got someone off Fiverr, but they didn't index the site.
Mhm.
And it's just a button on Wix. It's literally like, do you want this website to be found by Google? Yes. I made a TikTok about it. People started
Mhm.
trolling me saying, your friend didn't pay for this. And I'm like, no, this is about integrity. If you're designing a website, click the fucking button.
Yes.
Like, click the
Yeah.
button. That isn't SEO. That's just like common decency.
It is. Yeah. Oh my gosh. And like the client, honestly, the client was so annoyed when we found out that this
Mm.
was what was going on, because we'd been monitoring Google Analytics, we'd been doing ads, and I mean the back
Oh,
end
she was
stuff.
probably like, "Oh, it's all coming from ads and
Yeah,
social,
no,
like,
sorry,
Google
we
hates
hadn't
me."
been doing ads. I mean, we'd been marketing and driving traffic to the website. So the
Mm,
only traffic that was coming to the website was what was coming from
so
external marketing. So
yeah, like social, basically.
basically social or PR and that sort of
Mm,
stuff driving things back. So yeah, very frustrating. So folks, do that. That's a second action from Sally.
yeah,
Go and check, is your site indexed?
yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Make sure you do that.
So sorry, Sally, sorry. The second part of my question was strategic keyword research. Now I had
Strategic.
Connor Clayton come on recently. He's a YouTube strategist, and we talked a little bit
Ooh.
about this. So, but I'd love to hear what your techniques and strategies are.
Yeah, definitely. So I now use a platform called SEMrush. It's quite popular with like marketers or marketing agencies. It's expensive as fuck, but there
Mhm.
are cheaper options out there and there are free ways as well that you can bypass the system a little bit. But if you want to get in the nitty-gritty, SEMrush, Ahrefs, or a real affordable option is Ubersuggest to do this. And what I just start with is I start with something that we call a seed key phrase. So you kind of have two types, I guess, of keywords. You've got the seed key phrase, which is usually very broad. In my business, for example, it would be marketing agency. So, whereas I'm a marketing agency for coaches, so that'd be more a long tail keyword. It's a bit more descriptive. What you find is the broad phrases, very competitive, lots of searches, hard to rank for. Long tail key phrases, a bit more niche specific, a bit more detailed, more of a sentence, less competitive, less search volume, but a great way to get your foot in the door if you're a beginner. Because I'm more likely to rank on Google for marketing agency for coaches than I am just straight up marketing agency if my website is brand new.
Mhm.
So, what I do is I kind of start with those seed key phrases and you can put them into these keyword research tools. They spit back tons of stuff back to you. So you can really start building a keyword list from there. And then you can get like long tail keywords in there and stuff. Set a
And just
time limit.
explain what long tail keywords are for people who don't know.
Yes, the long tail keywords are the ones that are more the sentencey ones. So, like marketing agency for coaches, or you have a lot of coach and consulting clients. So, that client that you mentioned, coaches for women in midlife or coaching program for women in midlife would be a long tail phrase,
Mhm.
whereas like midlife coach might be more of the seed key phrase that's a bit broader.
Mhm.
So you can mix those up and at this point it is more of like, just think about okay, what might my audience be searching and then go from there and then you'll start to have a bit of a bank. Also, I'm going to say when you do keyword research, set yourself a time limit. Otherwise it'll be like days later and you'll still be like it never ends. So
Oh
maybe
my
like
gosh.
set yourself an hour or two.
That's exactly what happens to me. Like totally undiagnosed ADHD, but I go down rabbit holes and you
Same.
don't see me for days. And that's literally it. So I'm glad you said that for anybody else who's listening who's a little bit like that hyper focus comes in.
Oh,
On terrible. Right.
I
Okay.
did it with a client last week and I was like, wow, I've just like spent 5 hours on your SEO and I was in the zone.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's how I kind of start. And then if you do use these keyword research tools, one thing that you can then do, if your brain's a bit like fried and you're like, oh, I can't really think of any more words that people would be searching off the top of my head, you can actually put in your competitors' URLs and see what keywords they're ranking for. And you might be like, oh, I didn't think of wording my business in that way. I can add that to the keyword bank. So that's then another way to kind of go a little bit deeper with the keyword research. There is another way as well. It's a little bit I call it old school because it's been a long time. If you really wanted to go down a black hole, there's also what people call the alphabet soup method. And it might be like, for example, I might put marketing agency A in Google, and you know how it starts giving you loads of suggestions. Now you
Mhm.
don't get the search volume from Google when you do that, but it's a great way to see if there's any words that you might not have thought of, and you go through the whole alphabet. So that's a bit
Mm.
intense. I don't massively do it because I've got the tools now, but
Yeah.
that's another way to do it.
I've
So yeah.
definitely done that. And one of the hacks that Connor gave is to do that in an incognito window.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. Because
Mm.
what Google actually does, and this is something to keep in mind, if you're logged into Google, it will serve up, and it's not wildly different, but it will serve up slightly different results depending on the user. So, like,
Mm.
say if maybe you've got like an ideal client who's been low key stalking you, and they've been signed into Google at the time, if they Google what you do, it is more likely that you will appear higher than you maybe would in an incognito tab.
Mm.
So that's something that's quite fascinating. It does take into account your interests when serving you up search results. That's why when you search as well, you'll often see a lot of purple links because it's
Mhm.
links that you've clicked on before.
Mhm.
Because obviously they want to give you that great user experience. It's not usually a wild difference, but there can be a difference.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. So what we've covered so far in terms of your framework is set up Google Search Console and Google Analytics, and then
Hmm.
do your strategic keyword research. So that's step one and
Yes.
two. What's three?
Yes. I'll go to 3 in a moment. I just wanna give you one more tip for
Oh,
keyword
okay.
research as well. In Google Search Console, when you go in, you remember I said it's gonna show you all the keywords that you rank for. Put
Mm,
those in your keyword research tool as well and check the search volume of them, because
okay.
that is literally people who've already either got an impression of your site, aka they've seen it on the list, or they've even clicked through to your site using that keyword. So it's always worth putting that in the tool as well to see, okay, how many people are actually searching this a month? Because
Okay.
maybe I can optimize for that keyword since I'm already ranking for it a little bit.
Fantastic. That's a
Cool.
great tip. Love it.
Yes. So C is clearing the path. And anyone that's on my SEO course, this is where they hate Sally. Because this is the meaty bit. And this is where we do a site audit and we check something called your website health. There are tools out there to do that. So SEMrush will do it, Ubersuggest does it. And it basically, this is where it will flag up any errors on your website or notifications or things that you might want to consider with your SEO. So that's when we get into cleaning it up, because I'm going to come out with a lovely phrase here. You can't polish a turd. So if your website is like a bit of a shit show, and you've got a ton of, and I'll go into what everything means, but like a ton of meta descriptions and title tags and URLs that are all messed up, no matter how good your content is on your page, if it's not like optimized, if it's not starting off in a good place, Google's probably going to pass it over. So that's
Mm.
why my next step is cleaning what you've got.
Yeah, that makes
So,
sense. That's an exercise I've done myself this year,
mhm,
actually, and I used SEMrush to do it.
mhm,
And you can use SEMrush to do that for free, folks. So I don't pay for
mhm.
SEMrush to do that. And every
Oh,
month,
okay.
then every week or every month, it sends me an email telling me what my site's health is.
Yeah.
And so what I had found was with some of the blogs that I had and where I had links going to people, there were things like maybe people's websites had changed or they'd
Yes.
cancelled the link, or even if it was links back to my own stuff internally, some of those links weren't working anymore. So that was a job for my VA. She was like,
Yes.
this was where she hated Deirdre. We did that cleanup and she was like, ugh.
Yeah, it can be intense, but like for example, I had a client recently and she had this broken link on her website, and broken links, they're normally fixed fairly easily. This one, it would not drop off, and it was the last error on the site and it was driving me up the wall. Anyway, she used hosting called Bluehost, and the way that they set up redirects, so if you've ever got a broken link, sometimes you can change it manually, or if you think that there's loads of links to that web page, you can set up something called a redirect. So if anyone ever tries to go to that broken link, your website will shove them to a different page so you don't lose the traffic basically. Bluehost system for setting up these redirects is terrible, and it basically requires you to have the old page existing as well as the new page, which defeats the object, because if the old
Mhm.
page existed, we wouldn't need to do a redirect. So this error kept flagging, even though I'd put in this redirect. I'm like, what is going on? Like, it was driving me up the wall. I was like, I've done hundreds of redirects, and I'm like, what have I done wrong? Anyway, I learned that they had this stupid system, and I had to like go into the code in the file and update it on there. But I saw that error drop off, and I was like, this has been plaguing me.
It's the small things. I get it. It's the
It
small
literally
things.
is. But yeah, it's one thing that kind of it's a bit of a pet peeve with SEO. Like, you have these platforms, these website hosting, these CMSs, which is like where you build your website as a CMS. And sometimes they don't really set you up for success, and it triggers me.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Because when people pay money for something, you expect it to work. And
Yeah.
when it doesn't work, it's like, okay, help me fix it. And if they don't help you fix it, then it's like, I fucking paid you.
It's like hire our SEO expert. And I'm like,
Yeah,
have you done this on purpose, hon?
yeah, exactly. That is annoying. It is annoying. Okay,
Yeah.
so clearing the path.
Clearing the path. So this is kind of all like I'll discuss a couple of things you might want to do on this. There is a multitude of things, and if you crawl your website using SEMrush or Ubersuggest, you'll see these errors come up. But a couple of things that are always seem to flag is your title tags, your meta descriptions, your URL structure, which are called slugs. That's a fun word. They're things that you can very easily, no matter what website you're on, you can edit these fairly easily. So I'll explain what those things are, because this is like a nice simple thing that it could be an action step that you do. Like, make sure those title tags and meta descriptions are there, because I've had a couple of clients where it's like that's been the defining factor. I've done all this other crap, and then I've done this bit, and I'm like, okay, that's the thing that's sent us over the line. Okay, well, we're good. So your title tag is, so when you Google and you literally see like the heading and it's in blue or purple if you clicked before, that is your title tag. Now, that may also be called SEO title, depending on what website provider you use, but the official term is title tag. That little blurb that you get underneath is your meta description. Now, what you want to do in both of these is you want to make sure that your primary keyword that you want that specific page to rank for is in both that title tag and that meta description, if possible. And there's also a limit as well. So this is like your little basics of SEO that you want to check. For your title tag, 55 to 60 characters. So less than 60 characters. I usually get mine between about 50 and 60. I just use like a word counter thing. I've asked ChatGPT before to like shorten it, and I'm like, that is too many characters. It like failed me.
It can't do it. Yeah, it definitely
Yeah.
can't do it. I type all my stuff for blogs and all of that stuff I use Google Docs, and Google
Mhm.
Docs has a word counter and a character counter. So you can check it
Nice.
in there, and that's how I do it.
Nice. And then your meta description is, people say 155 to 160 characters is like perfectly optimized, just less than 160. And this is where you might get thrown by your CMS. If you're on WordPress, you'll be grand. When you're on websites like Wix, I'm not sure about Squarespace, but I know Wix and Shopify are very guilty of this. They'll tell you to type in your meta description and they'll give you 320 characters. Now, what
Hmm.
happens is if you put a 320 character meta description in there, Google will do something called truncate, which means it will just cut it off and you will just see little ellipses. And this is bad for a couple of reasons. One, people can't see the whole description, so you might not have got to the point at the point that it chops it off. Two, they might see it as, if you've like included a few keywords in that, they might flag you for over optimizing your site and trying to be all spammy and stuff it with as many keywords as possible. And three, like I said, it's because it's cut off, you're maybe not making it as sexy as it could be. So meta descriptions can be a bit of an art, because you want that keyword in if you can. You want to make the user want to click. It's like a blurb when you look at the back of a book, and you want it to be less than 160 characters.
Mhm.
So that's like a big one. And that's like kind of like the basics of SEO. So your title tags, your meta descriptions. Next thing, I see this mistake made a lot, your URL slugs. So this happens on WordPress especially. You have something called your permalink structure, and that's how every link is structured on your page. And I think as a default setting, it sets your blogs to like show the date and then like the category and then the name of the blog. And you've got this big, massive URL. And actually, URL like the whole thing needs to be less than 120 characters total.
And folks, just for your URL, that's the www
Yeah.
dot da da da. That's
Yeah,
what your
all that.
URL
It's
is
all,
in case.
even the HTTPS, like yeah, that
Yeah.
whole thing,
Hmm.
less than 120 characters. And what you find is with WordPress, it'll show you like the date and the category. So you've got this ugly ass link that's just a load of numbers and other stuff. And you can actually change that in WordPress. And I think it's just in like your general settings on the left, and you can go in there.
Hmm.
Um, and another thing that I see is that a lot of people do that, but then they'll write a blog and it might be a big beefy title. So it might be like, say if you're a business coach for, I don't know, other coaches, I don't know. Say if you're a business coach for marketers, whatever, and you have a blog post that's like how to sign more clients into your marketing agency.
Hmm.
It's quite a beefy title. I see people's URL slugs being that long. It's like the whole title. And actually, those slugs need to be 3 to 5 words and just get really like specific. You don't need like the conjunction words like and of and to. You can just be like, I would in that situation, I'd be like, sign more clients, marketing agency would
Hmm.
probably be my slug for that. So
Yeah.
that's something that you can do is just to clean things up. And it's a much tidier URL as well. If you're ever sharing it, you've not got this ugly.
Yeah, it's easier if you're calling it out. Imagine if you're on, I don't know, a master a master class, or you're going live and you want to be able to say, check out my blog, www dot da 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 dot how to
Slash
do this in 5 ways
2022.
so that you can da da da.
Yeah, so I've seen some pretty long blog slugs before. So I would, if you've got a lot of blogs right now and you're clearing the path, don't feel like you have to change them all because you will have to do redirects, but maybe that's just something you do moving forward is
Mhm.
make them nice and efficient. And that's something that Google's confirmed that it likes you to do. A couple of other things that I see, your website page structure. So this is actually a big one, and especially if you don't really know much about websites or you designed your website. So you know when you've got like your titles on your web page and then you've got like a bit of text underneath and then you've got all these subheadings, you will see that they're named. So you might have a H1, a H2, a H3. You'll have seen it when you're doing your design. And a lot of people think, oh, that's just like if I want that font really big. And they think it's purely a design, but that is actually a website structure thing too. And so you need to make sure that any page on your website, there is only one H1. That is the main title, because I see a lot of people have lots of H1s
Mm.
because it's like, oh, I want a big title everywhere. And then everything underneath that, every other subheading should be a H2. And then if you've got a subheading of that, H3, H4, and you can just quickly assign that. Now, Wix is very friendly with this because what you can do is you can have your big, beautiful title that you want, but when you actually click onto the settings of it, you can you can change just the HTML tag. So you can set it to be a H2 and it still looks like your H1 heading, which is really quite
Oh,
nice.
that is smart. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I do for this, folks, is I write out all of my blogs in Google Doc. And
Yeah.
in Google Docs, you can apply your H1,
Yeah.
H2, H3, and so on. And then you can copy and paste it into WordPress or whatever
Yeah.
platform.
It's and
And
it does it.
it automatically picks them up. So for me, because I like to read it like that and then not worry about editing it until later. When I'm writing it, that's how I write it, and then it just copy and paste. It's great. So that's a hack from me.
Yeah. No, I love it. And I'm the same. I love that you can literally just copy and paste it in and you don't have to change everything again.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
made like a framework. I used to content write before I had this business. I was a freelance content writer. So I created my own blog post framework because one, I had to learn how to type really fast because I was getting paid offensive money for writing. And I was just like churning out content. But I also had to make sure that it ranked on Google. So my framework is all structured out. The headings are there, it's ready. And I've got like a little bit of a framework that I follow that usually gets people ranking on Google for that blog because I've like taken into account because it was SEO blogging. I had to make sure that they were optimized well too.
Love it. And so, Sally, is website page structure, is that part of clearing the path, or is that step
Yeah.
four? That's clearing
Yeah,
the
that's
path still.
clearing the path is literally everything. And this is where I might scare you a bit. There are apparently 200 or more ranking factors that go into ranking on Google.
Whoa.
And you can find some websites that will tell you all these little things. I very much simplified it into like a 16-point checklist. You've made your own checklist as well, haven't you, based on
Yeah.
your own stuff? But yeah, it's anything that comes up on your website audit is this clearing the path. So you might get errors about how fast your website is. So, you might need to make your images a bit smaller. People have brand shoots and they get these big whopping images and they just put them on their website and they're just too big.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need them to be that big. So, like, even things like, yeah, I use tiny PNG. It's a little panda is the logo. And that will like compress your images, so make the files smaller without losing quality.
You can
Because,
do that on Canva as well, folks. If
yeah.
you upload your image to Canva and then you go to download it, or if you're using a
Mhm.
stock image on Canva, I use PNG. Do you use PNG or JPEG, Sally? Which do you prefer?
It depends. JPEG is usually a smaller file type,
Yeah.
but if you're using anything with like a transparent background, you need to do a PNG because JPEG doesn't have that functionality. So if you can use a JPEG, say if it's just like a basic branding picture for you, the
Mhm.
file size will naturally be lower,
Yeah.
and you can use that. If it's something like, say you've done, I don't know, like I did an infographic for a client and she had like this pyramid on it and you kind of wanted it to be see-through in the background, then you would have to use a PNG. Those file types are just naturally bigger.
And so on Canva, folks, maybe you've not spotted this, but when you go to download an image from Canva, you
Mhm.
can switch it from PNG to PDF to JPEG, whatever you want to
Yeah.
switch it to, even MP4 if you want to add animations and make it a video. But then there's two options underneath that, and one is to do with quality and size.
Yeah.
And so you can make the you can keep the quality, or but you can reduce the file size. So that's just something to bear in mind if you are uploading images for your site that are stock images, or even your own images, as Sally said, your brand photo shoot stuff. You
Mhm.
can lower the amount of bandwidth they'll take up so that your site loads faster by doing
Yeah,
that.
because Google likes fast sites. I mean, how many times have you gone on a website and you've waited more than like 2 seconds and you're like, oh, like
Yeah, the
you're gone.
circle is going around, or it's
Like
loaded,
you're
or the
you're
page is
done. Like
blank. Gone.
we we've got no attention span. And while we're on the subject of images as well, you want to name those images as well. So if it's to do with a particular blog, you might want to name that image because then you can come up in Google image search. And it sounds madness, but I actually know a dating coach,
Oh.
and she was having a hard. I was like, maybe I need to go and target dating coaches because she was having a hard time finding, like, she had her ideal client come to her. And this person was like, oh, I've been Googling like crazy and I just can't find a good dating coach. And she's like, I actually found you on image search through an Instagram post that you posted, and like Instagram's image come up as Instagram image search. And that's how she found her. And I'm like, this is why you need to name your images on your website, guys. Because that
Yeah.
woman was on such a mission and she didn't get the results on the main page of Google, that she was in the trenches of Google image search, just trying to find anything to find this coach for her. Like, it's crazy.
Mad.
And
That's
if you
cool
sell
though.
products, yeah, I know you work with like a lot of coaches and consultants. So this might be more digital products, but if you sell like digital products, like naming your image, like for example, I have people find me on Google for real cover templates. I sell real cover templates as a little passive thing. Also, my SEO chat GPT prompts. I've had people find me on Google from that, and I
Mhm.
name the images because that
Mhm.
actually then it's related to the item's product schema.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can show up there and you can get traffic from that too.
Cool. Love that. Love that. Okay, so tell us, what is number four?
Elevated content marketing. So it's more of an engagement piece really. So this is your blogs. So at this point, you know where you're at, you're where you want to be. You've got a banging set of keywords. You've got a lovely site that you've optimized. Now you're ready to like engage your audience really with this content. So this is all about doing your blogs, which I'm sure that many of your clients want to do. And it's the same sort of process again, like I start my blogs, like I said, I've got this framework, but I start by, okay, thinking about, okay, what's going through my ideal client's brain? Who am I targeting today? Am I targeting someone who's Googling symptoms and they want to know more about something that they're struggling with? So yeah, probably are if you're doing a blog. So then I would go into and do my keyword research around that blog, see if I can get like my main keyword, see if it spits out like 3 to 5 supplementary ones. You will naturally rank for way more than that, but if you just keep it as, like, 3 to 5 secondary keywords and 1 primary keywords, it just gives you that focus, and then you go ahead and write your blog and make sure that that's, like, optimized. Same thing with your page structure that I just mentioned, make sure that's all neat, add in pictures to break up the text and whatnot, and just make sure, as I said before, people have got somewhere to go.
Mm.
Google likes it if you're on their site for long if people are on your site for longer
Yeah.
because they see it as a trustworthy resource because they're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, well, they found help from that," and then they went somewhere else.
Yeah, and all the social media platforms are the same as well. They call it dwell
Mhm.
time on social media.
Yeah.
It's the same concept. And I think with this, Sally, something that's coming to my mind on this is in terms of the elevated content marketing is a word bank. So when clients work with me and I do their brand story stuff for them, I give them a word bank, which are power words that they can use and incorporate because they become synonymous with this person. So people get
Yeah.
known for using this word all of the time, right? So
Yeah.
that's kind of the idea behind it. And it helps with that memorability around clients. But I'm guessing keywords would be a really great fit to go in there as well in that word bank because that's going to help with the off page SEO ranking as well, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly, and, like, if there are mentions of your company elsewhere with keywords that are also featured on your website, then Google might they'll be making that association too. So, yeah, I think that that's really powerful.
Okay, definitely. Watch out, clients. That's coming for you. Okay, tell us what's number 5.
N, near me. So that
Okay.
is your Google business search. So that is whenever anyone is searching for business coach, consultant near me, anything near me. So that's just all about getting your Google business profile optimized if you are on there. Obviously, that's an off page SEO thing. And it goes a bit deeper than just making sure that your address, phone number, location, everything is on there. You can actually now, you can do like updates and it's almost like little mini social media posts. Google loves that. If you can repurpose a couple of your social media posts a week to that, they will see you as quite an active profile and you will rank better because you're using all of the features. But you can do so much on here. Like you can add a services list, you can add a pricing list. One thing that's really going to help you as well is getting reviews from previous customers. That helps loads because obviously Google wants to, if someone's searching for a coach near me, they don't want to give you a coach that's giving you a 1-star rating or no ratings. Now, one thing I will say, I will caveat this, and I'd love to know your thoughts on this, Deirdre. People are naturally suspicious of people that only get 5-star ratings. So if you ever get like a lesser rating and your average is 4.8, I don't believe that Google will penalize you for that. In fact, I probably think that that's a more realistic result
Mhm.
than having 100 5-star reviews
Yeah,
because
I agree.
not
I
everyone
agree.
is always 100% happy and it can almost look a bit doctored if it's like, oh, there's only good reviews of this person.
I agree. I'm thinking, I think I have 2 or 3 five-star Google reviews, but if I was looking at a restaurant, if I was going to a
Mhm.
restaurant in Dublin or excuse me, if I was going to a restaurant in Dublin, I mean, if I see 2 or 3 five-star reviews, to me that indicates that it's a new place and that people haven't gone. And maybe it's
Oh.
friends and family that have rated the Google
Yeah,
thing. That's how my brain works for restaurants. And so if it's a case that there's a restaurant that, like you say, has maybe 200 or 500 reviews and it's 4.5, 4.8, 4.9, I'm like, I'm way more inclined to go there than the place with 3 five-star reviews.
correct. Yeah, like literally, I'm the
Yeah.
same. So yeah, that's just something to keep in mind. Like, you don't have to only just a good habit to get into as well, just as a business owner. Ask them for feedback when you finish working with them. Ask them if they'll leave you a Google review.
And
and be
folks,
quite honest with it. Like,
if
feedback is so important.
exactly, and the same goes for podcast reviews, folks. I'm
Yeah.
just going to throw it out here right now. If you're enjoying listening to this episode, be sure to rate it or review it wherever you're listening.
I
Okay,
love that
I got the
plug.
plug in. I got the plug in.
I love that. And
Okay, number 6, Sally.
last but not least, it is D for diversification. So that is focusing on all those off page SEO efforts. And the reason why I put this at the end is because I think that this is a nice flow of things. You're doing the content marketing, you've got a nice clean site, you've done all the stuff on page, you've done everything you can do on your website. Now let's think about what you can do outside of that. So that might look like pitching to the press. Have you got a media kit? It might look like what I'm doing today. I'm here on your podcast, like really getting your name out there, your brand out there, because all of those are trust tags for Google that you are a credible and legitimate business owner. So it's about kind of all that. And I actually did a PR course with an amazing PR lady, and I did it because I was like, oh, it's really going to help my SEO when I'm pitching to all these brands.
Yeah, and it does. Like, and if you can say featured in something, and especially the news ones, you mentioned BBC earlier, Sally, and I
Mhm.
completely agree with you. And it's like you said, LinkedIn for LinkedIn articles. LinkedIn ranks so high because it has that domain authority, which basically means that, for example, if I have a brand new website and I recommend Sally, my domain authority is going to be very low because
Mhm.
who the fuck am I, right? Whereas if LinkedIn or BBC or RTE News or CNN or whatever channel it might be recommends a link to Sally, well, then their domain authority is going to be a lot higher. So, what Google are going to be like, oh, this person is definitely that credible expert, and send people to her. So, it makes sense. I'm the same. I did a PR course as well, Sally, with this cool girl, and it's really good. And I'm actually going to be working with somebody on PR for a client, and I'm looking at getting somebody to help me with PR because it's time consuming sending in these
Yeah.
pitches and stuff as well. And what's interesting about it, and people don't typically know about PR, is that it's not just putting in a press release into a paper or
Oh
going on a
no.
radio. It's not about like paying for, oh, I'm recruiting or hiring or aren't we amazing and check us out. There's loads of things you can do from a PR perspective. Like you can be a guest on somebody's podcast, like Sally is here today, and some of the other incredible guests that we've had on the show. Or you can write articles as well where you're a guest contributor in
Yeah.
something. You can get featured on Forbes for doing that sort of
Literally.
stuff, folks. Like literally, I've even had somebody write a pitch to help them get featured in Forbes. I just haven't done it for myself yet. But
Yeah.
there's that sort of stuff that really helps lend to your credibility. And I love that you've said that diversification, Sally. I really completely agree with you because that lends to your credibility and your confidence in so many ways. So
It
yeah,
does.
yeah.
It's amazing. And just as well, like I landed my first piece of press coverage just by responding to a tweet from a journalist. Bearing in mind, I think I've got 3 followers on Twitter or X or whatever it's called now. But it was like she just put a call. I follow a load of journalists on there. Purely, I'm only on that platform to see if there's any journal requests because reactive PR is so powerful. Like you just respond with a couple of lines. If they're interested, they'll get back to you and maybe a bit more. And the article was, should you mute people on social media out of jealousy? And I was like, I can give you a perspective as a business owner who has muted business owners before out of jealousy. But that was in Mashable, which is a really high authoritative site. And I got a backlink from then. And then I actually ended up getting other backlinks because people had like redistributed that article. And I was like, wow, I'm getting all these backlinks just from this one article. And then I contributed to something else in like iNews as well. And that was a reactive piece. Again, I responded to it was either a Harrow or a quoted request for a company called TechRound. And I was talking about SEO in there. So it's like, it's actually there's so many opportunities, and I love that you said guest blogging as well, because before I was this business owner, before I had an agency, and before I was a freelance content writer, I was a blogger. I was a travel blogger, and we used to do like people with high authority sites were like, "Can you come and write an article for us on
Mhm,
this cool place that you went to in South America?" And I was like, "Hell yeah," because your domain authority is 40 and mine was like 3.
mhm.
And
Yeah.
I got a link back to my site because it was like, I can link back to one of my articles or just our homepage, and it really helps. So I love a bit of guest blogging.
And all those things are free, folks. All it takes
Hmm.
is your time, or, if you're going to be like me and my client, hiring somebody to help me do it to save me the time. So they interview you and write the piece for you. And what can happen, and Sally's right on X. I've done this before as well and been featured in the Examiner, which is an Irish paper, and they have an online app as well. But one of the things that they do is, so you can kind of get featured in articles. It might be where the journalist is interviewing a couple of different people,
Yeah.
but really they get to spin what you say in whatever way meets their criteria for what they're saying. So I personally would prefer to be the one who has full autonomy and control and write my full article and then be like, here's my off the wall opinion on this thing, or
Yeah.
and send something like that in, instead of being one of 3 or 4 people that they've interviewed. So that's just my
Yeah.
hot take on that. And Sally mentioned journal request. If you go on to X and search or follow hashtag journal request, I'm not on there either. I think I might have posted 5 times in my life on X. But you can definitely go in and follow that, because that's where the journalists tend to be,
Yeah.
and they're looking for news and they're looking for it fast. So if you have an option to go in there and check that once or twice a day, you might be surprised with what comes up. And there's another one, oh, I want to, what's it called? Harrow.
Arrow,
Higher,
yeah.
what's that? H,
HARRO, help a
yeah.
reporter out. Yeah.
Hire a reporter out. That's it. Yeah. And I think that site might have been updated recently, but that's definitely
Yeah.
another one to check and keep an eye on if that's
And that's
something you
been
want to
going
do.
years. I used to
Yeah.
use that when I was travel blogging as well, and we're talking like, God, that's like nearly 10 years ago. So yeah, it's a really powerful place
Mm.
to get featured. One thing as well, just on the topic of diversification and just transparency, like I didn't have anything to do with this, but I've had clients where they've put out content before on TikTok and then the media have picked up on it because it's gone
Mm.
viral, and then the media's picked up on it and just done an article on it. So
Yeah.
I'm like, "Wow, okay," like,
That's
I mean,
cool.
it wasn't ideal, like, the way that they spun it because it wasn't my favorite media outlet, but
Mm.
it's it's interesting to know that you can also just get picked up just
Hmm.
from diversifying your marketing efforts and as well just building that personal brand and standing for what you believe in. You can end up with a cheeky little powerful backlink to your website.
Yes, you absolutely can. Speaking of which, I'm going to tell people where to find you in the show notes. So do you want to just name your site, Sally,
Yeah.
and what people can find you on later on?
Definitely. So, if you actually want to have a conversation with me, I would say that I'm most active on Instagram and I can respond with like a voice note. We can have a little natter. And my handle on there is 49, like the number 49, North, and then dot digital. Don't forget the dot. I had the one without the dot and I lost it because I'd lost my phone number. It was awful. And then, yeah, I've got my website, which is 49northdigital.com. So you can check out me on there, more about like what I do, my agency services. You can learn more about how I can support you guys with your SEO as well.
Fantastic. Sally, it's been an absolute pleasure. Loads of practical, pragmatic tips, which we love. And
Yes.
folks, isn't she amazing? Sally is
Oh,
amazing. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Sally. You've been fantastic. Thank you.
oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Whoa, I don't know about you, but I have like over a page of notes in my notebook here. Sally, that was amazing. Thank you again. Thank you, thank you, thank you. What an episode, folks. She seriously dropped some SEO knowledge bombs, right? So I'm going to recap the first 3 steps of Sally's framework. And these are: first, on page optimization is your foundation. So get those title tags, the meta tags, and all of those headings in order. Second, content is king, but context is queen. So ensure your blogs and all of your pages are optimized for the right keywords. And finally, don't underestimate the power of off page SEO. Just like I mentioned, that's where you can get found on LinkedIn and other platforms too. So building quality backlinks is also an extra ticket that you can use to help build your authority. Now, I did mention action, so here's one action you can take today. Set up Google Search Console. Google it. Not sure how to do it? search in Google how to set up Google Search Console. It will literally guide you through, and you'll probably find a YouTube video that can help you as well. Start analyzing your site's performance. It's really invaluable. If you do want to get your website performing well, you need to start there. That's one of the foundations. It's a simple step that can give you immediate insights into what's working on your website and what needs improvement. Want more content like this, more fantastic episodes like this, and more SEO knowledge? Well, dive deeper into Sally's SEO strategies at her website, 49northdigital.com. She's got a fantastic course that will guide you through getting found on Google step by step. So, if you found today's episode value, please share it with your fellow entrepreneurs, anybody who you know is trying to get more clients via Google, or get their website found, or just get more calls booked in their calendar. Give this episode a share with them. Every time you share an episode, your shares help us reach more people, obviously, because you're sharing them with your friends, but it also means that we can bring even more high impact guests like Sally to the show. And don't forget, join our online Master Your Business community. Let's stay up to date so that you know what episodes are released and when. And last but not least, make sure to hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening today. Give the show a rating or a review. And at the end of the day, we're here to help you master your business. Until next time.